I remember when I was 16 looking for a job in the newspaper, and it was a ritual that I would open up the paper and look to see what was available. And at the time, this was very early 60s, at the time there were two sections for jobs. There was job wanted male and job wanted female. And the female jobs were teacher, nurse, secretary, stewardess, clerk typist, cleaning lady, and all the help wanted male were doctors, lawyers, engineers, business executives, all of the things that were the really interesting things to do. And I would keep looking at the help wanted male because I wanted to do those jobs. But I knew that if I applied for them, I'd be called a lesi. And of course, when I was 16, that was nowhere near anything that I was thinking about, and knew that that was a bad thing. I really wanted to fit into where I was supposed to be. And I wanted to be that good Jewish girl, and I wanted to marry that nice Jewish boy, and I wanted to have those children. And I wanted to be Jewish. I loved Judaism. I wanted to be as Jewish as I possibly could. And it didn't occur to me then to even buck tradition. When it first occurred to me was in the mid-70s when I heard about the local food cooperative in New Haven wanting to hire a butcher. And specifically, they wanted to hire a woman butcher. And I signed on immediately. And I loved that job. I loved it. It's the only job I ever had that had a beginning, a middle, and an end every single day. Plus, I got to wear overalls every day and heavy jackets and work in a 45 to 50 degree environment and cut meat. How could you want to do anything better? I gave up being Jewish when I came out as a lesbian. And I found this synagogue, miraculously, that welcomed LGBTQ people in 1990. And I became very active in it right away. And the more I studied and the more I learned, the more I wanted to do this in my life. And the more people, again, came to me and said, you realize you're becoming a rabbi, right? And I didn't realize that until I found myself sitting on the floor of my local Judaic bookstore, sobbing, reading a book that talked about becoming a rabbi, because it's what I wanted so much. My partner and I sold our home, and all of our furniture, gave it away or sold it, put a couple of books and CDs in storage, and moved to Jerusalem so I could study to become a rabbi. When I decided to go to Ziegler Rabbinical School, I knew that they didn't allow people to be openly gay or lesbian there. And bisexual, transgender weren't even part of the understanding. So I also was told by many people, many rabbis, that within a year and a half at the most, that the law was going to change, and the conservative movement would then welcome lesbian and gays to become rabbis. And it did change, but it took 4.5 years. It wasn't until mid-December 2006 that the law changed. And then I got to be completely out. And I'm the first student to get ordained by the conservative movement who got ordained out. There were some other people who were out when they got ordained, but I was the first one that could go on interviews and be completely honest about who I am. And as hard as it was, I can tell you that the most amazing evening of my life was when I got ordained. And we voted, each class votes, who they want to do the ordination sermon, to get up in front of between 500 and 1,000 people and be the one to speak for the whole class. And they chose me to do that. So I stood up in front of every leader of the conservative movement, all the families, all the friends, the president of the congregation I was going to, my son, who was so proud of me, and give this sermon about community and about how important Jewish community was and what that meant to us as a class and what that meant to all of us as we went off on our jobs. I went from this child who didn't have any choice about who she could be to being a rabbi in Israel. When I came out as a lesbian, I thought that was the end of coming out, that I knew that I hadn't been a straight woman, but I still thought that I was a woman. And it really wasn't until about 3 years ago when I understood that I didn't experience myself as a lesbian anymore, but as queer, that saying that I was a lesbian, having it be a female adjective, was too limiting for me. And then I was working for JQ International and doing inclusion trainings, LGBTQ inclusion trainings, and teaching about gender identity, gender expression, biological sex, and sexual orientation, and knowing that what 3 of them were, and not knowing what the 4th was. When I was finally able to identify as genderqueer, the first thing that I felt was enormous relief, because I had tried so hard to fit into the mold of what a woman was supposed to be. And I always looked at other women and thought, I don't look like that. I don't feel internally how she looks externally. And when I realized that I wasn't a woman, what I felt was enormous relief. Because what I feel is an openness to being exactly who I am and not have to fit into the gender construct of the traits that people think are only woman or only man. If I were to have anything important to say to people, it would be figure out anything in your life that doesn't fit anymore, that isn't going to work in your life anymore, and change it. And I think that's why I've been able to do the work I've done and impacted the people I have through all of my professions, is because as much as I could in any moment, I work to be exactly who I am and not who I thought I should be. And I don't feel, as some people say, that I'm somewhere in the exact middle between woman and man. I feel like who I am has nothing to do with either. That I am genderqueer, meaning none of the above.